Hey, Jeff Carlisa here from 38 Special, and we're rocking it up right here with Traders Nation.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to Traders Nation. My pleasure to have Allison Ostrander with us here today. She's Director of Risk Tolerance and an options trader specialist with a simpler trading. Allison, welcome to Traders Nation. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. So we just started covering a lot of cannabis stocks here on Traders Nation. Certainly, a lot of small cap companies are emerging out there. They're getting some attention from these large cap companies, large amounts of investments coming into them. And then now we're seeing across the board legalization, like up in Canada, for instance, October 17th. This is some legitimizing going on. Should Main Street start taking cannabis serious?
Well, I definitely think that there is a line here where we're definitely going more towards legitimization. So I definitely think if you're one of those people who like to jump in early, that jumping in now is definitely not a bad idea. And it's not just in Canada that we're seeing this legalization start to come through. There are many countries, including states around the world, starting to allow for legalization or for medical purposes. I know recently Germany allowed for the import not only of the oils, but as well as the flowers. So there's a lot of stuff going on worldwide that I think is allowing for more tolerance around this. And I think a lot of the pharmaceutical companies are also starting to take notice of this, and if they want to stay with the game, will need to start stepping in there as well. So I definitely don't think that this is a bad area to get into. And if you did want to maybe protect yourself against one company maybe, going down or something like that, you could always look at the MJ ETF and jump in there and kind of have a little bit more protection around the sector.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Certainly hemp, people look towards hemp as far as like a medical advancement in helping folks. So it has potentially a lot of medical conditions can be helped by that. And I think the pharmaceuticals are wise to wise up to that. And I think there's an area for them. I mean, pharmaceutical is huge, right, as it is. Right. But I think if they come into this space, I think it would be a good idea for them. Your thoughts?
Oh, I think it's absolutely a smart move to do. And you're actually seeing this occur also on the cannabis side. For example, there's a company that will be, I believe, coming out soon within the U.S. market called Aurora. It is a company up in Canada. Not only are they trying to pair with other companies like Coca-Cola to make cannabis-infused beverages, but they're also a company that has been big on trying to acquire positions in other cannabis companies as well as within pharmaceutical companies to kind of streamline their own cannabis medical products. So I definitely would start taking note of companies like Aurora who are, diving into maybe the pharmaceutical companies buying up some themselves to definitely streamline this a bit more and, stay ahead of the rest of the curve on this cannabis growth, if you will, within the world.
I wonder is there any buzz going around, for instance, like the FDA? I mean, there's a lot of cannabis use, like the oils, infusion into some of these soft drinks. What about the FDA? Is there are they touching base on this? Are they going to be able to keep up with this? The government's really slow to move on some of this stuff. I mean, they really are, right? No, I agree. I think the government is slow. And I think, with some of the talk that you've seen out there for years now, that maybe they're starting to pick up as well. I do know recently, I believe the FDA allowed for some import from Canada so that they could start testing out the product themselves. So the FDA is kind of up on it. I do know that there were talks politically about, maybe not allowing some of the CEOs of these companies into the U.S. and kind of like barring them. But I think with as much business as we have stateside itself within these companies and what the FDA is looking to do, I think that, if anything, is just more talk than what is actually happening behind the scenes. Well, let me ask you, since Canada is going across the board, folks are looking towards the United States as far as legalizing marijuana. States have gotten onto it. But as far as on the federal level, folks are looking to the feds. Some guidance, right? But if there's like this political thing where they're not going to allow CEOs of some of these cannabis coming in, that's not a good sign for folks looking to see legalization across the United States on a federal level, is it?
No, it's not. And I do think there will definitely be some, unfortunately, red tape hurdles that we'll still have to get across here legally on the federal level. Yeah. But I do think the FDA starting to turn to allow that import of the flower, to allow for testing and things like that, is definitely a step in the right direction and a good sign that at least I think on a medical point, it's starting to get hard to ignore that. Right. Maybe if we don't go for full legalization right away, we could at least start to see it increase to a medical point to allow the benefits of that to occur for people who really need it.
And I would love to see that, because from what I'm reading, I've read it for quite some time, long before it became a popular item to follow, certainly has its medical benefits, okay? It did 100 years ago, it does today. Same thing, difference. So I'm thinking that if the feds say, okay, I think that would be the catalyst for the industry in the United States. It would be huge. I mean, we're seeing big moves now, but the feds say, okay, that would be a huge catalyst for the cannabis industry in the U.S., right?
Oh, absolutely. I think if the feds started to come out and say, we're moving towards legalization, we're starting to look at it even from a medical standpoint, you're going to see a lot of these cannabis stocks jump up in price. So, like I mentioned, if you're one of those people that want to get their foot in the game early, you're maybe not as concerned about the legal matters around it, then certainly jumping into something like the MJ sector or into a company like CGC or TLRY that's already traded over here is certainly a safer bet. TLRY, of course, is a little bit more volatile, so if you're looking for something maybe not as drastic a movement, definitely CGC is another great company that is now available to trade in the U.S., and it definitely has a little bit more stability in the pricing, I would say.
Yeah, so you must have been reading my mind, because there is a lot of volatility in some of these cannabis stocks. I mean, let's face it, some of these stocks were sitting at 50 cents, $1, $3, what have you. Now they're 10, 20 bucks and even higher. $100, $300, right? So where do you feel would be, so somebody wants to come in as a long-term investor, forget about trading as a day trader, swing trader, whatever. Long-term investor, somebody says, you know what, I think this is finally, in years, this thing is going to come out and play out well for me as an investor, long-term investor in the United States as far as the industry. Where would somebody come in at? Doesn't have a lot of volatility, because a lot of people don't have a steel stomach like traders, right? So where do you think, some of these intraday swings are huge. Where do you think they should come in? What would be an area or a company? Is there ETFs or anything like that you would, I know you mentioned MJ, but is there anything out there that most folks could stomach a trade for a long term?
Right, and I do agree with that. Something like TLRY, where you saw that over 100-point move within a day, I would probably stay away from if you're a longer-term trader and not playing those intraday movements. Yeah. But I think one like CGC is a great one. Now, it definitely has volatility. I will say, from where it was trading just at the start of 2017, around $6 to where we are today, around 50. It's seen a big jump. Yeah. But compared to something like TLRY, it's definitely a lot more stable. And I think when you take a look back at a longer time frame, for those of you who like to chart like I do, and take a look at a weekly or monthly chart, it's still in a very nice bullish long-term trend. And right now, actually, we're seeing a pullback on a weekly chart to where it might be a good opportunity to buy. We still can move a little bit lower down to anywhere between $42 to $31 as longer-term support levels. Yeah. But if we started to sell out at those levels, I think that would be an excellent point to jump in. That might be, a time I jump in myself. Awesome. The other thing that I'm personally looking for is I'm kind of waiting for that Aurora company to be listed on the U.S. Stock Exchange, because I would love to jump into that when it's listed and kind of just play that very long-term Buffett style, if you will.
We're out of time. Where can we find you, Allison?
You can find me at the Simpler Trading website, helping educate people along the way.
Head on over there today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. SimplerTrading.com. We'll be right back.